So we'll be having the Assistant Representative Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, Dr. Abubakar Suleiman, and he'll be sharing with us some of the opportunities provided by FAO in the agricultural sector that the youth can leverage. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to panelists and others joining. I think maybe the question for me is a question more to the government representatives having the mandates in the country to support agriculture. But I will try as much as I can to highlight these key issues nationally. But I would like to perhaps start with giving some perspectives within the trends in the food and nutrition security sector, so to speak. Perhaps this can maybe help in setting the stage and identifying those opportunities that can be tapped by youth to support entrepreneurship, job creation, and support investment also in agriculture and agri-food system. So by way of trends, as globally and nationally, it appears there is a rising level of food insecurity globally in West and so specifically sub-Saharan Africa appears to be a major food insecurity hotspots. In Nigeria, there is no country-wide data indicating the level of food insecurity in the country. But FAO has been supporting the Federal Ministry of Agriculture to do an analysis that we call cadre harmonisé in French, but is an integrated phase classification for food insecurity. For the moment, the analysis is covering only 16 states in the country. But even as at that, about 12 million people are facing either crisis or emergency levels of food insecurity. And this figure is highest since 2015 at the peak of the recession and conflict in the northeast Nigeria. So this is the background. In terms of other drivers of food insecurity, you need to look at escalations or progressing episodes of conflict, not only the decade-long insurgency in the northeast or the activities of, activities around Niger Delta, which has subsided a little bit, but other episodes of conflict around northwest, and north central, linked to banditry, kidnappings for ransom, reprisal attacks, and farmer-herder conflict. All these conflicts are affecting capacities to grow and make progress in the whole agri-food systems generally, because it leads to displacement, which means farmers cannot access land and other productive resources. So this is one aspect. A lot of the panelists have talked about inclusive access to input and resources by different groups of persons engaged in agriculture. So this is one of the drivers that impact access to land, to input, to technology, and so on and so forth. Another major driver is the COVID-19, which affect in a lot of ways the revenue streams of Nigeria, which heavily relied on oil. Secondly, it disrupted food commodity flow because of a lot of restrictions, total, partial, restrictions of not only finished products of food origin, but also input and logistics of distributions, marketing, and trade of food and agro-allied materials. So another factor is climate change, extreme weather events, variabilities of weather, particularly dry spells and rainfall patterns, means very unpredictable weather. And agriculture, as much as we like to see it, but the risks that and vulnerabilities and variabilities of weather affect the production system, affects the distribution, processing, and storage of different agricultural commodities. So climate change is also impacting those areas. And the other thing is demography, and urbanization. The population globally, human population is rising. In Nigeria, it's also rising. So this means the demand for different kinds of food and agro products is also increasing. So by urbanization also, the type of and the lifestyle of people are changing. So also their consumption patterns and habits is also going to change. So these are the major, trends around food security and nutrition in the country. So what are the opportunities, so to speak? What are the missing links? What are the bottlenecks that innovators, youth can leverage on to release the constraints and catalyze the transformation that is needed in the food systems generally? First of all, I have to talk about innovations. A lot of our speakers that talk in the past, they've made stories about the past, how the older generations are not really, or the older ways of farming is not really something that is seen to be interesting or catchy by the new generation. As true as it is, it's still a fact. But what I'm trying to say is that we are seeing agriculture in a very crude sense of the word. So that's why it naturally will not be interesting, will not be in many ways appealing to anybody, not only the youth. So for us also growing up, everybody would like to maybe go and work in an environment where they wear, white collar suits and dresses and go to a very fancy office. So it's really what, from my perspective, the youth are looking at. But in many respects, many other professions and vocations that are stuck in crude methodologies would also not be appealing, not necessarily agriculture. If you take maybe traditional herbal medicine, I'm sorry if that's the case, you would still find this kind of practices and lack of standards and lack of quality assurances and very crude tools being used in those sectors. It will still not be appealing. So the point is, agriculture is not appealing because it's not agriculture. It's not appealing because it is not transforming to the realities and the needs of the generation. But in that, you still have a lot of opportunities. So going back to innovation, now, how do we release these constraints? When we talked about urbanization, it means that the way people in urban areas, which are becoming more the predominant habitat of the general population, the way that they access food is changing. I work, for example, in an office 8 to 5. Probably with COVID, I don't have access to an easy place where I can go and have lunch. I have to order. So what it means, there is an opportunity in online trade of food, maybe ready to eat food. So these are opportunities that young entrepreneurs can provide solutions to. And I'm happy to say that with COVID, this opportunity has even become more real. Many online retail outlets through social media platforms have become, available, and many are leveraging on it. So logistics and transportation of food is something that is changing very, very fast. The type of food that we eat is also changing. So these are creating paradigm shift in demand and supply of certain products, meaning entrepreneurs who can innovate and provide these solutions would naturally find creative niches around those sectors. And another thing is technology. Now, a lot of the changes or growth that is witnessed in agricultural production today in Nigeria is largely linked to intensification of land use. And this link to what I said at the beginning, climate change. If the more you use land, use natural resources unsustainably, the more you're creating problems for climate change. So, and as I said, a lot of the changes is linked to intensive cultivation of more land to grow more food. But it shouldn't have to be the case. How do we leverage on technology to use minimal as possible natural resources, be it land, water, vegetation, to produce more? And this can only be solved through technology, machineries, very light technology, and to some extent, access to knowledge and skills. And the good thing as an enabler for youth in Nigeria is that about 65 to 80% of youth in Nigeria have basic literacy and numeracy skills. What it means is that they can access knowledge, they can access skills to be able to apply in developing solutions to agri-food system issues that we are talking about. Meaning it is possible to identify the right technologies, to access them, and to be able to leverage on that to produce more optimally and more sustainably. Meaning, as our colleague had said, how do we cut wastages? And wastages is not necessarily on private resources. Wastages has to be cut also on natural resources. And one of the ways to cut that is through technology. The capacity to achieve more, maybe using less. And so for me, optimization is another entry point for within the food and nutrition security sector to make really meaningful impact, be it in agribusiness or in livelihood or in investment. Another point is the area of data. One of the big issues with agriculture is data for planning, data for forecasting, and data for early warning. For example, I just give the data for Nigeria. Up to today, we don't have a country-wide data on the pockets of food insecurity, even at the state level, let alone local government area level. When you have data, it is possible for you to project, to be able to say what kind of sector or what kind of geographical location should I place my factory or my business or so this kinds of data is another issue for us in FAO. This is a lot where we come in through what we call the hand-in-hand initiative. We try to bring in together FAO's global data sets, more than 30 of them, from biophysical to socio-economic, trade, weather, and so on, to be able to support governments across the globe to predict territorially where different innovations or interventions within the food and agricultural space can be located that will maximize return on investment. And this can catalyze a lot of investment, either through government resources or through international finance institutions, development partners, but more importantly, through the private sector. And when we say private sector, then that's the issue again of access to finance, for agriculture, particularly for the youth. Many of the speakers had lamented how access to capital by youth is really very difficult. It is true. One of the bottlenecks is trying to develop youth-sensitive, gender-sensitive, innovative solution to agricultural financing. We need, yes, to understand the risks, but we need to also develop, appropriate and, risk-sensitive mitigation strategies that will support agricultural financing. And maybe the last thing I would probably talk about, I don't know how much time I've got left, is of all these things, we need to understand the institutional setup that underpin agriculture in Nigeria and underpin food security. We are talking about governance. Unless we advocate, and the youth have, a strong voice to advocate for better governance around agricultural spaces, around agricultural institutions, we can still not make a lot of progress. Institutions in agriculture need to be inclusive. Currently, a lot of the institutions are extractive and exclusive. So there are a lot of opportunities for youth to advocate for more inclusive governance, better human capital, and more inclusive, youth-sensitive, gender-sensitive agriculture-based institution to support the transformation and to support the entry points for youth that will enable them to release the constraints that affect not only the youth, but the food systems in general. So I would like to stop here, but thank you for the opportunity. Over to you, moderator.